Hey y'all, it's Cassie, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a crochet purse. In particular, I'm going to be showing you how to make some granny squares, attaching them, and then adding a strap. So the first step is to make a magic circle. This is a really important technique to learn and so helpful. So you're going to want to make this crisscross across your fingers with the yarn. I know this looks a little complicated, but just go ahead and watch that back if you need to see again. Then go under the top right and pull through the top left. And once you've done that, you're going to then look at the back of your hand and pull that left string through, just like a slip stitch. Ta-da! Okay. And then you're just going to go ahead and look at that beautiful loop you've created. This magic circle will make it really easy to crochet in a circle and not have to deal with trying to attach it. Anyway, so the next thing you're going to do is double crochet. So loop around your needle, go through, loop around your needle, and then loop around your needle again, and then pull through 2. So you're going to have 2 loops left on your hook, and then you're going to loop around your needle again, and then pull through the other 2, so you have 1. So that is a double crochet for you, and now we're going to do that again. So again, loop around your needle, go through, loop around your hook, and then loop around your hook again, pull through the first 2, well, you have 1, and then the next 2 you pull through, and then you go ahead and make another loop and pull through the last 2. And now you're going to go ahead and slip stitch 4 stitches. This is going to be the corner of our granny square, and just slip stitching, it'll look like a chain practically, and we're just going to start to repeat this pattern after doing so. So we're going to do another 2 double crochets, 4 slip stitches, another 2 double crochets, 4 slip stitches, another 2 double crochets, and 4 slip stitches. So this is really great practice for slip stitches, double crochets, practicing your magic circle. Realize that we haven't done any single crochets yet, and just be conscious and make sure that you're constantly doing the double crochets to make sure everything is symmetrical and even. And of course, this is the speed up section, but you can always go back, watch it slower to see how these stitches are done. There are lots of great other resources on YouTube too. Anyway, once you do your final 4 slip stitches, go between 2 of the double crochets and do a single crochet. I know I just did some weird double crochet looking thing there. I accidentally looped before I pulled through, but just do a single crochet. I promise you that is what you're supposed to do. Anyway, you can go ahead and pull on the loose end of the magic circle to tighten the center and get a better look at your granny square. Okay, next what we're going to do is chain 4. So we're practically doing the edge of a fake double crochet and then 2 across to cover the length of the 2 double crochets. So we're practically going to make gaps over where the double crochets are and double crochet where the gaps are to kind of create this checkerboard-ish pattern. So after you do that, you're going to put 2 double crochets into your 4 chain loop at the corner. So you're going to start getting this thicker side on the edge. So do those 2 double crochets again. On the needle, go through, on the needle, pull back through, on the needle, pull through 2, another on the needle, pull through both. And so now that you have those 2 double crochets, now we're making the corner again. So you're going to do another 4 slip stitches. So anytime you're at the corner, it's 4 slip stitches. Anytime you're in the middle, you're only going to do 2 to cover the distance of that double crochet. So after doing those 4, we double crochet again, then we're going to do 2 slip stitches, and then double crochet again. Then we're at the corner, so we do 4 slip stitches. And as you can see, we're just creating another layer on the outside of this granny square. So 2 double crochet, 2 slip stitches to go across those 2 double crochets. And then you're just repeating this. So you're eventually going to end up with a square that is now double the width and double the height. And if you're ever wondering, oh no, what do I do next? Just look at the inner square and you want to do the opposite. Again, we are doing no single crochets while going around. We're doing double crochets to get that nice width added. Anyway, once you get back, you're only going to do one double crochet because we have the other slip stitches from our original 4 acting as a fake one. And we're going to do a single crochet. Again, I did some weird half double crochet, do a single crochet, and then you're going to do a slip stitch, cut the rest of the string, and pull it through. So pull the string on the needle through to knot it. And this is going to be your granny square. So there we go. It's this lovely little square. It kind of has this checkerboarded pattern. And as you can see, there's kind of a hole in the center from the magic circle. So you want to go ahead and tighten that and knot it off. This will keep it secure. And then, of course, you could try and weave it through. I find with granny squares, it's not as distracting. And as long as you tie a good knot and leave a decent amount, maybe half a centimeter, I haven't experienced any unraveling. So now that we have one granny square, you're going to replicate this process to create 12 total. So once you have your 12, you're going to go ahead and lay them out. I decided to make a 6x2 purse, so that means 6x2 on one side, so you need that for a front and a back. So I'm going to just attach 6 of the granny squares in a row to get a long piece that I can fold in half. So the way I'm going to do this is with a crochet needle rather than a needle for yarn, because I just thought it'd be a bit easier since the stitches are not quite as close together. So the first step is to take a piece of yarn and thread it through the 2 4 slip stitch corner pieces. And when you do this, you're going to want to go ahead and tie them together in a secure knot, leaving excess yarn on one end, because that's what we're going to use to sew through these stitch holes and actually make the purse come together. Now you can tie this while the yarn is still attached to the yarn ball, or you can do it with pre-cut pieces. Just make sure you have enough to knot it at the beginning and at the end. So as you can see, I'm just going to use this measuring because it's the first one, and once I get a good idea of how much yarn I'm going to need, I won't need it to be attached to the ball, and I can just cut out those pieces of yarn. Okay, so once I have detached the piece, I'm going to go ahead and start threading it through. So I'm going to take my crochet needle and I am going to put it through the stitches. So in between the double crochets, I'm putting my needle through and I'm going to use that to pull the yarn through. So practically between the double crochets and inside those empty spaces, I'm just going to pull it through. So you can either do it through one at a time or both granny squares at a time, but you just want to make sure it's secure and avoid any bubbling and have it lie as flat as possible. If you really think there needs to be 2 loops of it in between the sets of double crochets, go ahead and do that. I thought the granny squares were small enough that that wasn't needed, and it lay pretty flat. So it's really up to you, whatever you think looks best for your purse. But I just pulled it through once on each side. As you can see, I'm turning it to make it easier for me. Sorry if that makes it a bit hard to watch, but yeah. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull it through those bottom corner chains. And as I do this, as you can see, the stitches are still pretty loose throughout. I'm just going to hold it down and tighten it and make sure it lies flat as I do so. The next thing you're going to want to look at is that final stitch. That is what we're going to use to kind of tighten everything and knot it. So with the final stitch, you're going to go ahead and take your crochet hook and stick it through. This is not a stitch, this is just the string that you put through. And you're going to pull that tail end under that little stitch mark. And after you've done this, you can tighten it as much as you want. And that's kind of like pulling through a slip stitch. Later we will be working to cut these short and ensuring that those stay secure, but for now, that is how you're going to be attaching your granny squares together. So next, you take your next one. You're going to want to make sure where you tie the magic circle, as you can see, is on the same side as the other ones, so that they all can be on the inside. So go ahead and tie them again and cut that yarn so it is the right length. So something to watch out for while doing this is when you're slipping the string through, make sure your pieces aren't folded together, because that won't allow them to lay flat. You might have them kind of skewed and pointing out kind of, and that's definitely not the look you're going for. Additionally, make sure you're not just pulling through some of the stitches. Make sure, especially when you're going through the double crochet, that you're going between them, not just through the first layer where the stitches are, but rather between the stitches. And then with the chained areas or slip stitched areas, ensure that you're not just catching part of it, but rather the whole thing, and this will help it lie more flat and not get any awkward gathering. And this is something where if you use different colors, it could look really cool and have a patchwork effect. I just only have pink yarn on hand for this size, so I decided to just keep it all one color. But again, try and cut it so all the magic circle strands at the end are on the same side. So as you can see, this is kind of a little bit of a tedious process, but believe me, you got this. It'll be worth it in the end. And you're not only going to do this for the 6 in a row, but you're going to make another row of 6. And after you've completed that row of 6, you're going to stitch the 2 rows of 6 together. That way you get a 6x2 sheet of granny squares. And this will allow you to kind of have a piece of the purse that you can just fold in half, and we're going to only have to stitch the other sides. Something else to be conscious of while doing this is that all your granny squares are oriented the same direction. So this is not only with the circle stitch, like this magic circle, but also with the direction that you ended them. As you can see, I have a bunch of strings coming off the top of my collection of granny squares, and that's done purposely because that way we have them very consistent, and I just think it looks nicer and is neater, and they're more aligned because you do have that extra knot at the top, and just having them all consistently there will make it easier in the future when you're attaching things. And just, I think just consistency in your granny squares, even though they're practically identical on all sides, just doing so like this, because you do have those fake double crochets, will make it look more symmetrical and better. So once you go ahead and knot all those extra strings, you can go ahead and cut them away, and now you have your strip, and you're going to repeat this as I said, and then attach it again. Something else important to note is this is the time to check if your phone will fit in the purse. If it's not going to fit, you're going to need more granny squares to go ahead and lengthen it or make it deeper. Once you've completed attaching them all, you're going to go ahead and tie a string through the corner. So this is at the folded corner, not the other one. That way we can go along the bottom edge and the side all with one string. So once you've secured that, you're going to want to go ahead and thread this through. And although they're lying flat on top of each other, I want you to keep in mind that this is going to be turned inside out to hide that string that we just tied. So we don't want them necessarily totally flat together. And so when you end up tightening your string, you want to pay attention to if there's any bulging and what direction it's going, because you'd rather have it come inside, but ultimately you'd rather avoid it. So you want to try and have those ends of the stitches kind of meet together, almost as if they were flat, even though they're folded. Again, I'm just going in between the double stitches and through where the slip stitches are and pulling it through with my crochet needle. It's definitely big enough to do this by hand if you were really struggling, but yeah, I think this will just give it a nice clean edge. And as you can see, you could also use contrast yarn to get this nice kind of eclectic feel for your purse. And at that corner, you can either do 1 stitch or 2. In the situation you do 2 is because you want 1 along the bottom and 1 along the side. It could make it look a little nicer when you do turn it inside out. But otherwise, when you get to that corner, you're going to go ahead and knot it again, just like you did for the granny squares attached together. Go through that last stitch, and then after that, you're going to tie a knot just to ensure that it's going to stay secured. Okay. And once you cut that, you're going to realize that between the granny squares along the top, you actually get this kind of scalloped edge where the granny squares end and come together. And I think that's really cute. A way you could avoid that is just making a very large granny square in a way, I guess you could call it, and just have like a kind of square purse instead, and you'd avoid having any of the bridges like that. But since we are attaching the granny squares and not doing a stitch along the top, you are probably going to get that scalloped effect. Next, we're going to be making the strap. So you're going to want to start with a slip knot. If you're having trouble with this, just remember that you wrap the yarn around your needle, and then you want the loose end going over the part that's attached to the yarn, and then loop the yarn part around the needle again and pull through. That's always worked for me, but there are tons of videos, or you can rewatch this to get a better idea. And then once you've slip stitched 5, you are going to want to go ahead and take your needle and not go into the most recent thing you've slip stitched, but go into the one before that. This will ensure that your edges are filled in, because when you do crochet and you don't do that extra slip stitch at the end, it's going to leave a gap that doesn't look filled. So you're going to do single crochets across 4 of them, and then slip stitch, and then go into the stitches and do 4 across, slip stitch, and it'll give it a more filled in effect and look a lot nicer. You'll notice that with the strap there are no holes in it like the granny squares have, and that was just the personal choice to have the strap be less stretchy. The more holes you have, the more stretch it will have. And even though crochet is less stretchy than knit, I really wanted a strap that was secure feeling, especially since it's more of a over the shoulder bag that's right under your arm. So I just repeated this until it was the right length for my arm. It really can depend on you and where you want your purse to end, but you can definitely feel the stretch out that's in the strap, and also kind of pull on it and see how far it stretches. Anyway, once you've done that, you're going to want to go ahead and end that off by just pulling the yarn through with a kind of half slip stitch. You do the slip stitch, but then you pull it through. And you want to leave long ends on these straps, because you're going to go ahead and take that end and weave it through at the edge of the purse body. So you're going to go where the 2 granny squares meet along the side, and you're going to pull through the yarn through 2 of the stitches into one of the granny squares corners, just like so. You can use your crochet hook to pull it through, but you want 2 of those stitches into one of the corners, and then the other 2 into the other corner that meets at the side. This will ensure that your strap is centered and give it a lot cleaner of a look than sewing it on the inside. So as you can see, I've moved to the other corner and I'm now pulling it through there. If you're having any trouble with this, I recommend having it inside out, because then you get a lot more control over where your knots are. Otherwise, you're going to have to be a lot more calculated about where you tie your string. So if you just start with it inside out and do so, you can just go ahead and knot the strings where they are instead of having to deal with like pulling them through to the other side or anything like that. So once you pull it through, you're going to go ahead and use that same technique of going under the last stitch, like so, and pulling the yarn through. This will give us a nice secure knot that we will yet again secure by doing a little tie knot using our fingers and planting that at the base where it is touching the sewn parts. Okay, so once you've attached this strap, as you can see, you still have this little strand of yarn, and this is why I said you probably want it inside out, so that will lie on the inside of your purse. Next, you want to flip it over, and you want to make sure your strap is not twisted. Like, that will be a pain to undo, because then you'll have to add new yarn or undo a knot. So make sure your strap is not twisted, and you're just going to want to attach it the same way. Again, make sure your purse is inside out while you do this, so that the knot you make at the end falls on the inside. And as you can see, since this is crocheted, it folds super easily into this like triangle flattened shape so that you can attach everything. And then once you turn it inside out, as you can see, push out those corners, you will have your lovely purse with a strap that is beautifully attached and not twisted, thank goodness. But this is a great little purse to get to know how to do granny squares, practice with crocheting straps or waistbands, because that's kind of what the purse strap is. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like, and comment, and good luck creating a purse if you choose to do so. Bye!